Chainlink achieved a huge milestone this week by completing what is called a delivery versus payment transaction in collaboration with Connexus, JP Morgan's private DLT, and ONDO Finance's new layer 1, the ONDO chain. This is another example of a household name like JP Morgan continuing to develop in the world of blockchain. We're going to unpack this story and take a look at this trend from a macro perspective. You can guarantee a trend is forming. If you're new, my name is Wade. Welcome to another edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. I've been in the space since 2019 and I've researched over 1,000 digital assets. But the main reason I sit here in front of this camera at this desk next to this eloquent microphone is to share all that knowledge with you. In exchange, all I'm asking is if you find value, hit that subscribe button. In exchange, I got a few tokens of appreciation for you. Let's hop over to the terminal so we can check these out. First being the DHN Blockchain Starter Kit for 2025. If you're new to the space, consider this your dossier to the world of blockchain. It will be how you maintain your pulse on the industry. Next, you have Blockmaster. This 28-page PDF will keep you familiar with the fundamentals of blockchain technology. You can see it covers the history of blockchain, consensus mechanisms, setting up crypto wallets, how DeFi works, everything that I've been exposed to during my time in this space, I put into this PDF. And it pairs well with the new financial system master sheet. The assets you see listed here are ones we have covered extensively for years. This has given us the opportunity to categorize their associations. If you really want to get deep into your research, this is a perfect place to start. So let's unpack this story, guys. Like I mentioned, this was a win for everyone involved, not just these three entities, but the entire blockchain space. This was a collaboration, again, between Connexus, Chainlink, and ONDO Finance's new layer 1, where the transaction actually took place. Now, as much credit as people are giving Chainlink, we should also give a little credit to ONDO Finance in this case. This transaction represents the first use of ONDO Chain's infrastructure, a new layer 1 purpose-built to scale the tokenization of institutional grade real-world assets. So I don't really cover ONDO frequently, but I am impressed to hear they reached the point where they can develop their own chain. This is something that is very tough to do in the blockchain world. When an asset has the ability to get off of Ethereum, they start on Ethereum as what is called an ERC20. But if they get enough value, rack up enough achievements, and then they're able to develop their own chain, what follows usually is even more success because they take what they learn from being in the Ethereum environment, improve upon it, and implement those improvements into their chain. So let's give credit to ONDO Finance for this move as well. Now, getting deeper into the transaction itself, here's a description of exactly how this works. This information is very key because it gives us an idea of the positioning for each entity, JP Morgan, Link, and ONDO. Now, the transaction involved the exchange of ONDO's short-term U.S. government treasury funds, or OSUSG. If you want to look up the data for that, go to rwa.xyz. Now, as the asset leg with Connexus Digital Payments serving as the payment leg. So other descriptions will describe them as basically the deposit account that kicked off this entire transaction, where the funds came from, right? The DVP solution that orchestrated the movement of asset and payment was powered end to end by the Chainlink runtime environment, a secure off-chain computing environment for coordinating activity across blockchains and existing systems, which leveraged an integration with Connexus digital payments to synchronize settlement workflow. So Chainlink's runtime environment is something that I remember reporting on a couple months ago, but I didn't have a deep understanding. I have a deeper understanding now. And simply put, what Chainlink has figured out is the interoperability problem. These blockchains, don't matter which network you support and are a fan of, they have trouble communicating with one another. This for the 15, 16 years, blockchain in its form, in its current form, has been around. That has been the biggest problem. Chainlink has officially fixed it. I'm not going to tell you they're addressing it, they fixed it. And that's what the runtime environment actually is. This week is Consensus 2025, CoinDesk big sponsored event. It's like an expo for blockchain. The biggest names in the industry, they go here, they speak. Sergey Nazarov, the founder, creator of Chainlink, is heavily at Consensus. I say is because the event is still going on. But he was all over Consensus. And I captured a clip that explains from his perspective the inner workings of this transaction and the results of the information that they have knowing this works. Let's take a listen.
The private blockchain that JP Morgan has for the purposes of payments, where you can now directly buy a tokenized treasury product from the JPM infrastructure, right? So that's a pretty big development in my opinion, because you have a large institution that has done a lot of great work in the blockchain industry, has been building great blockchain infrastructure for many years, but so far that blockchain infrastructure has been kind of closed to its internal users and its internal ecosystem. And now that great infrastructure can interact with an external system like ONDO, which has a great asset and has a great chain and has a great set of on-chain financial products that can be interacted with by the JP Morgan chain and user base. So I think it's very positive that you have this high quality payment system, this high quality infrastructure that JP Morgan has built, I think, over the course of a decade, which I think is actually very developed relative to its peers from what I've seen and is in a very good state. And it can now interact with public chains, which from my point of view means that there's like a path towards more users using public chain assets in a useful, productive way.
We were covering a point a couple weeks ago, talked about tokenless blockchain networks. I believe I made a post about it. The point is, there are so many tokenless blockchain networks like Connexus by JP Morgan, R3 has one. The list is growing quite fast. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Universal Digital Payments Network, Blockchain Based Services Network. When you look into it, you'll see what I'm talking about. But the point that I'm making is, as impressive as JP Morgan's technology is, you notice they still needed a blockchain network to maximize their output. What we saw was an example of, and this is why I put the adoption model in the DHN starter kit. What we have is an example of an independent organization. In this case, we'll call them JP Morgan. They want to work with ONDO Finance, but they don't have a way to connect to ONDO Finance. That's where Chainlink comes in. Chainlink's technology somehow has figured out a way to pull the data from JP Morgan's network and the data from ONDO's network, pull it all together so that way JP Morgan's network can read whatever data it needs to read from ONDO's network. Once that data is readable and exchangeable, any application can then be built from it, or any asset can be transferred between the two parties. If you were to expand on this and replace JP Morgan with a Walmart, and replace ONDO with an Algorand. Walmart wants to implement a new form of payment system. Let's just say they want to tap into what Para is doing in their relationship with Immersive and MasterCard. They want to get access to that. Walmart, thanks to Chainlink's runtime environment, can tap into Chainlink, pull the data that Chainlink has for Algorand. On the other end, Algorand and Para will contribute their data. Chainlink will essentially, let's use the kitchen analogy, stir that pot up and serve a meal that both parties can partake in. When you understand that, you see, you'll really agree with me when I say this might have been the biggest story of the year so far, what Chainlink has done. So, all the more reason why they have been added to the index. Now, Chainlink has been here before, and it's honestly this story that locked it in for me when it comes to what Chainlink, what their value proposition is. And I also like this quote from Tom Jack, Chief Innovation Officer at Swift. He congratulates Connex's ONDO and Chainlink for this groundbreaking achievement, and then he adds a little bit more insight of his own. Number three is my favorite. A robust settlement assurance framework that leverages smart contracts to verify, reconcile, and finalize transactions across multiple networks that would reduce counterparty risk and optimize liquidity flows. For whatever reason, reading that brought up a discussion that we were having a couple weeks ago in regards to the tokenization of gold. I was watching a podcast, the gentleman was talking about how there's a problem with in the world of tokenization, you get a tokenized piece of gold, but you want to convert that to physical gold. There isn't an effective mechanism in place yet to make that happen. My thinking is, well, thanks to players like JP Morgan, Chainlink, and Ondo Finance specifically, there is now a new way to transfer the value or ownership of the tokenized asset, be it gold, silver, or whatever, in a new medium, in a retail fashion. So I think this will do wonders in years' time for the retail adoption of tokenized assets because now applications can be built in collaboration with Chainlink and multiple entities where everyday people like me and you can go to a platform. It may feel like Coinbase or it may feel like Uphold. I know a lot of people got problem with Coinbase right now, but it's okay. But it will feel like those platforms and we'll be able to trade, sell, leverage, loan out, whatever they may decide to do in the world of RWAs. That's really what I'm seeing coming out of this. Now, another leg to this, of course, is the interoperability aspect. And what you'll notice is Chainlink specializes in this. As a matter of fact, they've mastered it to the point of Swift. The biggest relationship people know about when they look into Chainlink is their work with Swift. And if you go back and look at the documentation, something interesting stood out to me. This also deals with delivery versus payment. Because delivery versus payment is essentially the action of delivering the funds or delivering the goods at the moment the payment occurs. This is instant here, atomic settlement at its finest. I looked back into this documentation between Chainlink and Swift, what I discovered is that they were working on the very same thing. Mind blowing. They built on top of that and added more entities. This diagram here shows how Swift Chainlink brought UBS, one of the most famous, world renowned financial institutions in the world, brought UBS into this architecture. And if you check the bottom right here, you will see blockchain B, blockchain A. So it's another example of legacy financial institution, Swift, using Chainlink's technology to bring in another third party, UBS. Now that they've all connected, UBS can make use of blockchain A or blockchain B. This is how we get to the mainstream. It will still take time, but I find this to be very profound. Very profound. Now, gets even bigger. Bank of Brazil, Chainlink, Microsoft. It's essentially the exact same setup. Bank of Brazil, Microsoft, they wanted to get involved with the blockchain world. In Brazil's case, they're already building their own CBDCs that resemble DeFi protocols. They're already exploring, with the rest of the BRICS nations, a blockchain based payment system that they can all use on their own, an alternative to Swift, ironically. So I get the value prop when it comes to Chainlink. And to the point of interoperability, they have seen this for quite some time. I found a clip from a year ago where a representative from Chainlink, forgive me for not having the name in the moment, speaks on how businesses also have a strong appetite when they enter the blockchain space for interoperability. Let's check this out.
But why is this important? Like, what is the actual business value of any of this? I think one of the key learnings that I've had over the last 7 years in enterprise blockchain is people tend to focus on the tech, but ultimately, if the tech is going to be deployed, it really comes back to business value. Over the last 6 months, we've spoken with well over 50 leading financial institutions, banks, asset managers, and financial market infrastructure providers. And there's really 3 categories where solving this interoperability problem adds value to their businesses. One is in connecting pools of stranded assets. So I mentioned earlier in the discussion that we had early deployments of blockchain. And while some have fallen by the wayside and haven't been funded and so on, some have continued. Some have continued to build. But it's interesting the way large conglomerates work is you have plenty of instances where one part of their business is deployed in production on a particular trade finance network. Another part of their business is deployed on a particular payments network, and they're not connected. And importantly, they're on 2 different blockchains. So they can't connect, they can't transact, which for an entity, for the same company. And so this is a lot of the feedback we received is particularly for some of those early movers, they want to connect up these pools of stranded assets via CCIP. The second one, and fundamentally the most important one, is maximizing liquidity. And I can't understate this enough because it comes up in literally every conversation. If you issue a digital asset, tokenized bond, tokenized real estate, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you issue some form of tokenized cash, central bank digital currency, stable coin, and so on, the challenge is you want to reach the widest possible audience, the widest possible set of possible investors. And if you sit on one blockchain and your expectation is that everyone is going to come to that particular blockchain, it's just not going to happen. And so we've heard this from banks, we've heard this from digital asset providers, we've heard this from asset managers and so on. And fundamentally, it all comes back to maximizing liquidity. You want to enable that connectivity.
You want to enable the connectivity. And that's exactly what Chainlink has been up to. Now, this graphic here, created by 101 Blockchains, we have companies using blockchain technology and companies investing in blockchain technology. I show you this because this is potentially Chainlink's market. This is who could come to Chainlink and partner with any number of public blockchains. My final perspective on Chainlink is essentially this. They fixed the blockchain interoperability problem and provided a secure and scalable way for businesses to interact with public blockchain networks. Chainlink is the key to the blockchain space, in my opinion. So when you look at the enormity of companies investing and companies using blockchain, the value, the potential value that Chainlink could reach is limitless. Now, obviously, market conditions, what causes a crypto asset to go up and down in value? There are way too many things to track. But what you can be sure is the relationships and what's being built as a result of these relationships. That's what you can rely on. And we've already taken a little bit of a look at the track record for Chainlink. If you look at companies investing in blockchain, Oracle, Facebook, we already know they're getting back into the stablecoin game. IBM, all over Stellar. Samsung, as a matter of fact, I was reading through VeChain's blog this morning. They're working with VeChain now. Okay, we just looked at the Microsoft example, Alibaba, Walmart. The list truly goes on, ladies and gentlemen. Now, another question too that came up in this discussion is how does this differ from what Quant offers? After looking at this for so long, guys, years, what I realized is Quant is Chainlink for the European market, the UK, Australia, essentially places where Chainlink hasn't chosen to go. This is all a matter of choice, because something else you'll notice with Chainlink is their user base and potential market is primarily here in the United States. And that's absolutely fine. How you should look at the comparison between Link and Quant is Chainlink does the same thing that Quant does for different markets. Chainlink will most likely serve North America, maybe bits and pieces of South America. And Quant will be covering Europe, the UK, maybe even parts of Russia. We don't know how far this will go. But you can pretty much guarantee that over time, we will start to see these networks occupying different regions of the world, much like companies do today. So when discussing the comparisons, the differences between Quant and Chainlink, it's really where they're working. That's the only difference to me. So at the end of the day, guys, this was a fantastic development for Chainlink, JP Morgan, as well as ONDO. Interested to see what else they plan on doing with their new layer one. And this is also a huge win for the space, because with Quant on one end, Chainlink on the other, now more businesses can get involved with blockchain. And the key thing to remember is Quant and Chainlink connect to all of our favorite DLT networks, your Ripples, your XLMs, Algo, Hedera, Constellation, the list goes on. They're beginning to connect to each other. This is a very good thing to see. Me personally, I'm looking at it like this. I don't see how you could hold just one asset. I really don't. But that's all for this one, guys. Don't forget to download your blockchain starter kit for 2025. Again, this is how you keep a finger on the pulse of the crypto industry. And with that, you get nowhere without fundamental knowledge of blockchain technology. And that's what you'll get with Blockmaster, 28-page PDF that will familiarize and teach you the fundamentals of blockchain technology. And paired nicely with that is the new financial system master sheet, which you will see Chainlink and Quant in all of these columns. All right. That's the trend. That's the pattern that's forming. The connectivity of blockchains is increasing, and that is making them more attractive to traditional businesses. So, lastly, guys, if you want to support the channel in another way, we are tapped in with Uphold. Not only am I an affiliate with Uphold, but I've been a customer since 2020, and I have not had a problem since. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description as well as the pinned comment. It'll give you access to everything that we just talked about. Now, y'all know what time it is. If digital, so is the hustle.